friends, welcome to this class. So we're going to paint this bird. I actually painted it a few years ago already. I used the same reference image, but I painted it a little bit differently because back then wet on wet wasn't like my main technique, and back then I was doing a lot of like washes, let's say wet on dry, so there would be more like hard edges overall. But when you look at that the image of that painting, it's actually pretty smooth overall, and I painted it with a couple layers so it's more vibrant. I like it. I think it's still nice, and one of the things I liked about that painting, and I want to repeat it, is adding a little bit of gold. So this is gold pigment. Well, it's hard to say it's pigment because it's basically just gold shimmer mixed with like gum arabic, but I like adding it to my other pigments. So for example, like imidazzle yellow or raw sienna a lot of times, because it makes that overall, like your painting, like it gives it like that nice shimmer, like that gold shows through, and it's really pretty like under the light. So that's an option. I am painting on a paper that feels more like a hot press. Just FYI, this is Centenaire watercolor paper. I found it when I was in London. It's basically almost the same as the collection cold press, the new version, which is almost like a hot press. So the paper will dry on me much faster. I do want to use a masking fluid for watercolors. So this is a synthetic brush, and I just want to use a little bit of that masking fluid for the hair, like individual hair, and I'm just gonna add some hair detail. I just want these to be more highlighted. So once I remove masking, all this is going to be more highlighted because it's just basically going to be paper white. And then the same thing like over the beak, I would say, because we have little dots. Alright, my friends, so here's my watercolor palette. So I have Monday Brown, burnt sienna, iso yellow, imidazzle yellow. I added a little bit of gold just so I have that gold shimmer in there, and then quin red, raw sienna, cobalt blue, some phthalo blue, indigo. So the best way to explain is by showing it. So I am going to wet all this, so the entire bird, not omitting the beak, not omitting the eye, but here when I go lower, I'm also going to wet this part of the background. Now, I've been waiting for a couple minutes, so I'm going to start pushing that water here toward the bottom. And that drop is okay. If you saw that I have a little drop, I don't care much about it because it's kind of like outside. It's not going to affect the shape of my bird. If it was like on the edge of my sketch line or something, then I would wipe it, because then the paint, once I apply color, that would connect to the water drop, and then I would have like paint flowing in there. This has dried a little bit because I've been wetting the paper for a while. So I'm going to add a little more water so it feels more like water to milk. I also want some of this iso yellow. I grabbed some gold as well, just FYI. Now I want this to be more pale, like a paler yellow, so I don't need to go right away for that iso yellow. What is that most yellowish area? It's actually right here. That's the brightest part. So I'm gonna go hop in here right away. Some more of that yellow. Now paint is spreading more. That means my paper is a little too wet. That's okay. I can adjust the ratio too. Go to maybe like milk-like ratio, but I don't want to go to heavy cream that I always talk about, like heavy cream, cream top. Here is my like kind of milk-like ratio, and I'm adding a little bit of quinacridone red. And why is that? That's because this feels so orange-like. Now I should probably add even more of the yellow alone first, but I was too tempted to jump in here, I guess, right away with that orange, and I want that here too. The reason is also like this area is so tiny. I grab more of the imidazzle yellow. This area is so tiny, like narrow, it would dry faster. Before that, I want to add a little more yellows right here, and then come back to this area. This is this iso yellow. I feel like I have actually too much gold now, but it's okay. Quinacridone red, iso yellow, and I do have way more of the quin red because I want these feathers to be more orange-like. I want them to be like brighter orange. But I also changed the combination of these paints on my brush. So more of the iso yellow now, more of the quinacridone red. And I'm using the leftovers here of that paint on my brush to add to those areas here. Now this is a little more bled. That's okay. Guess what? We have a tree here. Now the tree in the reference is much lighter here, and it has actually like a highlight there, but it doesn't bother me at all. That's why I wetted this part of the background, knowing that the paint will bleed. So those are decisions that you make before you start painting. Now, quickly, I do have to add the blue, shades of blue. And what I'm going to do is grab my long cool size 2, which is a smaller brush. And I'm going to grab this cobalt blue. And I'm going to apply it right here. Now, I wipe my brush on a towel. I started with like a milk-like ratio, but I feel like it should be more like a half and half maybe. And just adding it. It's just that this is the area. And then what I'm going to do is grab, with that same dirty brush, some of the heavy cream, I'd say, of burnt sienna, and I need more, and then quinacridone red too, and iso yellow. And I'm going to go here because this is like the richer area of my bird, like these feathers. But I do want to go back to this other brush, so I'm just going to switch. I have yellows. I just tested it. I wipe my brush a little on a towel. What I'm going to do is grab some of this burnt sienna, more of the iso yellow, and go for this very quickly, the shade of that the indigo too. And this is so much drier now at this stage. So I cannot use anything that feels water or milk-like ratio, or I'm just gonna have a bloom. So I'm following like how I see, like the pattern of these shadows. So there's a shadow here, and of course we have a shadow underneath the swing here, right? So we need to add some color there, or the shadows. So I'm adding more of the I grabbed more of the indigo. Now I'm gonna grab more of the burnt sienna, Van Dyke brown. I do want to make this a little darker right here, and mixing on the paper, the colors on the paper continues. Now this dried on me, so it's a bummer a little bit because I was hoping, just like in my test piece, to add a little more color, but it's okay. I'll just do it with the next layer. So here I'm going to continue instead on shadows, which is so important. Grab a smaller brush. This is my round 2, for example. I'm going to grab my, basically just maybe the Van Dyke brown and some of the browns. I'm sorry, Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna in blue, and add a little bit of the darker tone around these lighter feathers. Okay, so right here. If I can add it wet on wet, that's even better. Chances are some areas are just too wet. I'm sorry, too dry, like over here. And I'm adding this hair, like the detail, wet on wet. This is still wet on wet. So I'm going for the areas that are still wet-ish. What I should really do is go for these feathers. This is creamy paint now. And go for the shadow in between. Now this might be last chance. It actually is. This is like the last chance to add these shadows. To lift the colors, it's about timing. The paper needs to feel like damp, like you almost lost that shine on the paper. So this is actually too early here, but it's okay to lift here. If you lift too early, you're gonna create blooms, or not even blooms. It's like, yes, it depends on what time, what's the timing of lifting. Yes, you can create blooms. If it's too late, then nothing happens. So on the tip of my brush, more like a drier paint, and we do see a lot of that hair. This is like, I'd say that, I want to say like almost cream top like ratio. It's just that I don't have that much paint on the tip of my brush, and whenever I can see like there's a little bit of that hair, I want to take advantage and just add it, because that little hair sticking out. Let's see, anywhere else I should grab tiny more, and this is, I'm going to show it to you because this is the creamy paint. Like I'm almost like not getting anything on the tip of my brush. But for example, let's say I want to add a little more, and this time this would be creamy paint on the tip of my brush. It's almost like dry brushing, but I'm still adding some of that hair detail. Now, I wouldn't do too much of this wet on dry, because too much it just becomes not as soft anymore. And if you want to make it look really nice and soft, then you kind of want to stick to the just the inside, like the wet on wet, basically. Let's walk away from it and let it dry. Feel it out. Try to use the pointy part of your brush, so the tip of your brush, so it guides you. Like you're shaping also the beak too, because you can change the shape of it now. So on the bottom, it should be like more curled up a little bit, I'd say. And then just pay attention to, like, when you look at the reference, what parts are darker. Now this is a little more of the indigo, and I actually want this to be more brownish, so I'm grabbing more of the Van Dyke brown, and I'm gonna go all the way here. I'm gonna leave the top so this has to dry, and then I'm gonna work on the top, but for now we can just work on the eye. So with the eye, you can use the same brush or a smaller brush. What I like to do is grab, actually, quite a bit of like water-like ratio, I'd say. And let's say some of the cobalt blue, maybe Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna. And what I'm gonna do is mark for myself the areas, basically everything but that highlight. So watch this first, how I do it. This is just the eyeball. And because this is water-like ratio and I have so much of that, and I'm gonna go with a cream tip like ratio. This underneath the highlight is the darkest part. Actually, should have like a indigo, but for now I'm just gonna do it with this burnt sienna, some Van Dyke brown, and then I'm gonna grab Van Dyke brown and some of the indigo, and go right underneath this highlight. This is again the moment I can change things up a little bit. Add more of it underneath the highlight. And that's pretty much it for this painting. So please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for your time.